I am Rachel Carton. Welcome to our panel on the creator economy. I will be moderating. I write a newsletter called Link in Bio, all about working in social media, and I previously ran social for Bon Appetit magazine. And I'm very excited to talk with the three of you today. We have Ashwin Krishnaswamy, who is a creator who talks about the creator economy and marketing and brand, and I always learn a lot from your posts. We have Keith Bendies, who is the Chief Strategy Officer at Linkia, which is a influencer marketing agency. He knows a lot about the brand side of creator economy. And then we have Tony Bravo, who is a beauty and lifestyle influencer, creator. She's worked with brands like Neutrogena, Olaplex, Rhode, the list goes on. And she's one of my favorite follows, so I'm excited to chat with her today. I'm curious, just in the crowd, how many of you are creators or aspiring creators? Oh, wow, cool. And how many of you work in marketing, maybe like on the brand side? Okay, it's like okay, nice. Well, love it. A pretty even split, I would say. So I think what's exciting about this panel is that it's that mix too, right? It's like we have the brand side represented and we have creators, and I think the creator economy is a huge topic, so we're really focusing on how brands fuel creators and how creators fuel brands today. So to start, I want to do a little exercise and have each of you give me and the audience your elevator pitch. Maybe they're not sold on working with creators or the value of creators. What would you tell them in 2 to 3 sentences, the power of creators?
So I think when we talk about creators, I think there's ways to look at it in a small, medium, and macro sense, right? Everyone thinks of large size creators like, celebrities and Logan Paul and Mr. Beast and all these guys. But at the small scale, I've worked with really small brands where we've done product seeding, where we will gift product to individual creators who maybe have 5,000 or 10,000 followers, and their posts standalone have driven $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 in sales. And that is just from an organic, authentic post where they're talking about the product. At a medium-sized scale, I've seen partnerships. One brand that I worked with partnered with Alex Earl and co-created a product together. Probably drove a couple $1 million in sales for them over the span of 2 months. And so kind of across the spectrum, you see creators having an outsized impact and return for brands.
Cool. Keith?
I'm a data nerd, so I have a lot of data, so I'm going to lead with data. So 69% of consumers trust influencers, friends, and family over brands. 81% report social media posts from influencers. Friends or family drove interest in an item or service, and 73% of brand marketers are spending over 10% of their total marketing budgets on influencers. So, 5 years ago, yes, I think I sat with brands and had to explain influencer marketing and why they should invest in it. Today, it's usually more of how much should you invest and how should you invest it. And I think if I have to convince a marketer that influencer marketing is relevant, they're just not paying attention right now, and that's going to be a hard thing to convince if they don't already inherently know it. So this is just the way the world works these days. It's just how are you going to do it effectively?
Tony?
I agree. I mean, I'm going to keep it very simple. I don't have no data points. I think, sure, thanks. No, I think personally for me, I feel like I trust people more than brands typically. So if there's someone I already admire or appreciate, I'm a lot more likely to trust what they're saying. I still love brands at the end of the day, but I think for me, putting a face to it, especially one I already follow and trust, is a lot easier for me to look into or be inspired or influenced to try something out.
I agree, and Tony has convinced me to buy a few blushes myself, so the power of creators. Tony, I have a question for you about channel mix and just how you decide where to show up. You're on Substack, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram. Is your strategy the same across the board, and how do you sort of think about what those channels do for you?
I think they're a little bit different. I think each platform brings out a little different part of me. My Substack is a little bit more introspective. My TikTok's really fast, really quick. YouTube's kind of a combination of my Substack and my Instagram, so it all kind of pulls from different creative parts of me, which I think keeps it really interesting and fun. I'm not on every single platform, but I think it's important to kind of pick the ones that resonate with you. That's what keeps me motivated to stay on these platforms. But I think it's fun. I think it keeps things interesting, and it pulls something out of me every single time, something different. So I like having a little variety.
Yeah. Ashwin, how do you think about it, especially as your content is maybe like a little bit more marketing focused? Does that sort of inform where you show up?
Yeah, I think so. I started creating content on TikTok about branding and marketing, and at the time when I started creating that content, there were a few accounts that were really doing that, and so by being in a channel that wasn't saturated with that type of content, I think there was just a higher chance of standing out in that algorithm. Compare that to if I started on LinkedIn first, or if I started on Twitter first, where a lot of this conversation was kind of happening, I may have found it more challenging. So I actually think there's an opportunity to create any type of content on any platform, and people might be pleasantly surprised that you're showing up in a different way there.
Yeah. And then I guess on the brand side of things, Keith, I feel like I'm also on the brand side, and sometimes I feel like my weakness is that I don't work with influencers on certain channels that I'm not on. So it's like Twitch, I'm like, I don't know who we should work with there, and that's, I don't know, I think like it can be a tough thing. Some brands just don't show up on some channels because their marketers aren't on those channels. So how do you think about when you have a campaign, a brand wants to show up, like how are you thinking about the channels that they work with influencers on?
I usually say it's about what are we trying to accomplish, how much time do we have to accomplish, and how much money and resource do we have to accomplish it? Because there is a reality for every brand or every person of what they can do. So while I love the sentiment of YouTube is different, create for that channel, and TikTok is different and create for that channel, I do think brands should be on every channel to experiment and understand what's happening. I don't think they should be afraid to cross-post to different channels, especially across the short-form video platforms. Do I think if you have the time, resource, and money to treat everyone completely different and natively, of course I do believe you should do that, but the reality is most brands absolutely do not have that. And so I think you have to experiment a little bit, find your pockets, and then double down on those pockets. And don't be afraid to then completely pull back from ones that you have realized there's no way I'm gonna be successful unless I have a full-fledged strategy. So life has parameters. I think oftentimes experts try to pretend they don't, like, you should do it this way. It's like, yes, if I have all the time and all the money to accomplish the goal, I would do it that way, but I don't. So I think it's just know what your limits are, test, and figure out what's the right thing.
Yep, I agree. And I'm curious for Ashwin and Tony, can you recall what your first sort of like viral post that really took off was, and did it inform then the content that you posted moving forward?
God, I've been on the internet for a long time. I think my first ever, like anything viral, I think was on Vine, but that didn't really inform my niche or strategy at all. I just thought it was kind of cool. But I think what's really interesting as I've kind of existed on the internet for as long as I have and created content for as long as I have is I've noticed, for me at least, I think my niche organically follows me. I'm not following a niche. So if something kind of pops off or it's really cool, it's fun, but it's not as fun if I'm not enjoying making it. So I think for me, what's kept it the most sustainable is kind of allowing myself to inform my niche. I think sometimes you can get caught up in, I think niches are helpful though. I think they're helpful to kind of create a little bit of a framework, but I think when it comes to virality, not tying it so closely to your niche, because that's one video, is really, really, really helpful, at least I think for me.
Yeah, from my end, the first video that kind of went viral on my TikTok, I got in a little bit of a spat with Dave Portnoy because he launched a watch brand, and I thought he did a very poor job launching that brand. And so I did a kind of like quick rebrand of it. And I'm like, he didn't pay attention to anything, so I just like redesigned a lot of these elements. And then that video went super viral, and everyone's like, Dave, you should listen to this guy. You should hire him. This guy like knows what he's talking about in the world of branding. And I looked at that video, and it's like, well, the format of it would then be, hey, let me go find everything where I don't like the design of it, and then update the design. And that's like a full-time job. It's also not the right way to approach branding. So I didn't want to pigeonhole myself to that format or style, but I wanted to stay in the world of, okay, I'm going to talk about branding and marketing and apply this to consumer brands, and that gives me more breadth through which to talk about it.
Do you remember the first brand deal you got?
The first brand deal I got was, was with a glasses company. I was like, oh my God, someone wants to do a brand deal. And they're like, yeah, we'll give you product and like some nominal amount. And I was like, this is amazing, of course.
Are you wearing the glasses right now?
I'm not wearing those glasses.
I feel like a fake KPI that I've set for myself in work is be the first brand to partner with a creator, of just setting that goal, and it means a lot to I think that creator and sort of gives them proof of concept of, oh, now I can go out and say I worked with Kava and use that as a thing. And also for a brand that's such a they've never sold to their audience before. It's sort of a fun, not real KPI to hold yourself to. What are some of the tools or tech that you guys use that feel power the work that you do? Is there any apps, AI?
I am pretty lean with my content stack. I just record with my phone just natively, and then use a little CapCut.
Wow. Tony?
I think for me, I was a film and media student in college, so I've always been obsessed with cameras. So I think whenever I feel like I want to switch it up, I look into a different camera or lens, a different way to shoot my content. But I like to keep it overall very, very, very simple.
Cool. Keith?
I'm a LinkedIn creator on my creation side, so most of my stuff is the written word. But we look at everything. I mean, we have AI Day at the office constantly where we play with new AI tools. It's getting a little scary out there. I posted something the other day because H&M is doing the AI model cloning, so to speak, real models. They're making AI versions so that they can then place those models in all these different scenes. And then Qatar went the other way and created an actual AI avatar from nothing, and that avatar is going to be a big presence in their content. So the tools are getting crazy. I don't know if we're more older school or what it is, but I tend to just phone. We were talking about this too. If I pointed at me and everyone's yelling at me, turn it around to do the higher res camera, I'm I can't do that. So I'm very simple in how I do content.
And Keith, when you are looking to work with a creator, is there anything creatively that stands out to you? Do you look at I know sometimes I'll look at how other sponsored posts that they've done have performed, or is there anything that you look for creatively when?
So performance on one side and then creative on the other. Performance, I think, yes, how does sponsored content perform? Because sponsored is a very different world than organic. You should look at that. I know we talked about, on my podcast, we had John Yoshai on, and he was talking about how he looks at the following count versus the view rates on LinkedIn, and he says if they're consistently getting 5x the views versus following, he knows that account is a really up-and-coming account. So how do you identify consistency in view through, not just following? So that's performance data. On the creative side, I think it's two things. Is this about content or is it about distribution for the brand? Sometimes it's just about content and I don't care about distribution. Sometimes it's very much about distribution and influence, and sometimes those two things can marry. And then the second part of that is it about trendy, fun, social content, or do I need to get a specific brand message across? And again, ideally those two things marry, but they don't have to always marry. So where I think brands trip up a lot is every creator is everything for them. It's distribution, it's content, it's branded content, it's cool, trendy content, and that is not gonna fly. That's a recipe for being disappointed after the fact. I know we were talking about last night, brand that went viral, but there was no brand mention or brand presence. Is that a success for that brand or not? It is if the goal was cultural relevance, just constant content. If it was brand messaging and perception and no. So there's no right or wrong answer. There's just what am I trying to do, and if I briefed and found creators to do that thing really, really well.
I'm curious if you just quick takes. Do you feel, and I feel this way, if you include a CTA or a strong brand, a link, does that ruin the performance of the post? And how do you sort of reckon with the brand needs and what as a creator will perform better?
One of the ways that I've done that, so brands will often come to me and say, hey, here are some of the parameters. Mention the brand name within the first 3 seconds. Don't mention any competitors, link in bio at the end. Here's the 15% off discount code. And I'm if I do all of those things that you're saying I have to do, this video is gonna get 500 views. My audience is not going to engage with that content. They're immediately gonna see it as an ad. And so thankfully, I have just a backlog of sponsored content that doesn't come off that way, and I show it to them, and I'm here is how we can modify the content to make sure we hit your points, but we do so with more flexibility. And I think for anyone on the brand marketing side, one of the things that I think is always helpful to go and ask a creator when hiring them is just, what is your best performing standalone content? Give me 3 of those videos. What is your best performing sponsored content? Give me some of those videos so I can get a sense of how to insert our campaign and message into that.
Yeah. Tony, do you have any sort of pet peeves or things you appreciate when you get a brief from a brand?
I have so many. I think one of my most recent ones in briefs from brands,
Yeah.
I think there's been a lot of these kind of campaign briefs that are centered around like a viral moment for a product that doesn't exist yet. So it's like you're the first person to talk about this product and you're talking about it like it's already viral is wild to me. Doesn't make sense. But I've been seeing that a lot recently. Like from a creator perspective, it kind of just feels silly to be like, we're trying the viral whatever trend with this new product. No one else has their hands on it. And we've actually like told a lot of brands that, and they've like kind of circled back. And I'm like, okay, yeah, maybe that does make a little more sense. But that's like one of my bigger pet peeves. But I've noticed, like Ashwin said, a lot of brands have started kind of having us submit like, here's some organic content that's done really well, and here's some non-organic content, and we're able to kind of find an in-between, or they'll link it in our personal briefs, like, we like these videos, and they'll be non-sponsored videos, so I know they'll have like a little bit more leeway in terms of the call to action, or the energy that you give in the video, or like how non-scripted you can be. But I think brands are starting to become a little bit more aware of it, I've noticed, but it's still a back and forth, I think, on a regular basis sometimes.
Yeah, I wrote about a feta company that worked with a bunch of recipe creators and had them make, building off of the viral like feta tomato, they're like new viral feta butternut squash bake. And when I would click the hashtag that they made them all use, the only videos for the like feta butternut squash were the like sponsored posts.
Yeah.
And it's like you can't manufacture virality.
Yeah.
And I see the temptation to want to use a creator to like do that, but somebody's going to go digging through that hashtag and it's not going to look good. Keith, do you have any thoughts as somebody who's writing the briefs?
So in your example, if you had said that to me, I would have been like, all right, Ashwin, how about this? We do need some brand presence and mention in this content, and we do need a few key talking points. Do your thing. Either try to incorporate those somewhere in your video, or in B-roll, send it to us. Do whatever you think is going to maximize organic engagement, but I'm going to get rights to your content. And in post-production, I may be incorporating some best practices in paid media, like brand presence in first 3 seconds, shorter clips, more cuts, shorter copy. And that's how I'll get, in the paid side, the best practices of paid. But making you do that for your organic audience is going to be terrible. So it's more of figuring out what's the right thing to do the best work you can organically. But for me to have assets in paid that I know will perform really well in if it's a lower funnel goal, I don't want him to be like, buy now, get one free, click the link. That doesn't help my brand. But I could push things lower funnel in a media setting if I wanted to.
Yeah. I'm curious to hear a little bit about how brands are working with creators in like more of a one-off post beyond a one-off post, right? Like Tony, I know you led a master class for Tower 28. Ashwin, you've consulted with brands. Like, what are some ways that aren't just the one-off post and more maybe a long-term relationships that brands can think about working with creators? And Tony, I know you consulted with Rode. Do you want to like talk about that process a little bit of how that came about?
Yeah, it was all very organic. It's a brand I was already kind of obsessed with on my own. I do think consulting, specifically in the beauty space, I could see more beauty brands aligning with creators to consult. There is something really nice about being able to tangibly feel. I mean, in such a digital space, there is something really nice about being able to tangibly feel kind of your impact in the space, and I do hope that more creators get to experience that with their favorite brands. So I could see brands leaning into that. Also, it's just really nice to see kind of these arcs come full circle in regards to always improving, especially with newer brands. But with Rode, that's been like kind of an ongoing consulting situation that's been so fun to be kind of a part of the behind the scenes of a product to seeing it full out. I can see more brands doing that. I think that's a really great way to kind of continue out from the one-off sponsored posts that go on, especially in beauty, because there's always something new every single day. It's a way to make it feel a little bit more constant, I think.
I think, Yeah, I think the consulting naturally makes a lot of sense to me, just because as a creator, you have such a good pulse on how to create a certain type of content, how to even think about like an influencer campaign,
Yep.
how to think about product development so that it performs well on social, so you can be a real asset to a brand. Some interesting things that I have seen. I have a friend who makes. He's kind of like fashion designer. He makes a lot of content around brand and design. You know, Oren, and he did a partnership with a software company where they wanted to create merch. So they hired him to create merch because they know he has that skill set. He made really good merch for them that performed well on social, but he also then created content about the behind the scenes of making it. So it's almost using the creator as the creator for the thing that you need done, who's also making content in kind of multiple ways. So I think that there's this kind of like endless limit of co-creating and consulting with creators and using them beyond just like, hey, make a video talking about our brand or service.
Yeah. Keith, do you have any thoughts on that and even how that could be beneficial for a brand?
Consulting for sure. I have three. My top three would be IRL experiences, like experiential marketing. So Tony's getting in a car and going to Coachella right after this. My team will be there doing experiences with creators. There's creators and influencers all over this place, if you've noticed. Why? Because while, I don't know how many people, 3,000, 4,000 people could be here today, they're going to reach 1 million, 2 million, 10 million people at home and extends the value of the reach and the effect of the experiential marketing was very hard to do as a marketer historically because you could only get so many people to experience the thing. So in real life experience is number one. Product collabs, I am so amped on. The Alex Cooper Nestle deal, that type of thing. When I sit with CMOs, the first thing I say is, one, quadruple your influencer spend. Two, figure out how to do product collabs immediately. Like have one line in the supply chain that just rotates every 6 months and do creator collabs constantly. So I think product. And then three is in your shoots. We're doing some commercial shoots right now where we bring creators into it. I'm convinced half of the TV commercials you're going to see in 2 years are going to be creators. Either they're literally, if you saw the recent McDonald's sauce commercial, they leave the icons and the phone on the television because they want you knowing this is TikTok content that you're watching. That's other people talking about their brand. So I think there's so many ways to integrate where it isn't just Tony Ashwin, can you just post on your channels? They could do so much more if you just make it more strategic.
I'm curious to hear from each of you if you have a favorite brand and creator collab that comes to mind. That's not your own.
Yes. So I've one that it kind of announced today that it was this like collab, but it was this project that this guy was doing. There's this account called Kid with Crocs. Have you seen this?
No.
So Crocs did a collaboration with this New York City-based artist where for the past 2 months, he has been creating like 3D printing little Crocs and putting them on statues all around Manhattan. And every single one of his video has like millions or hundreds of thousands of views. It's racked up like 20 million views. And he has 200,000 followers that he gained from scratch in 2 months on this account. He's like, today I'm gonna go try to put Crocs on the Statue of Liberty. And then yesterday he comes out with this final post where he's like, I reached out to Crocs 5 years ago to like do a collab. They hit me up last year, and then this is the project that we
Really cool.
came together with. And I think it's so creative, it's so clever. It like built this community around people who wanted to see Crocs on a statue. So I think that was a lot of fun.
I love that. Keith?
That's a really good one.
It was a really good.
That was a really good one. I don't want to do an obvious one. I'm going to go deep cut and say the Royal Caribbean. Do we remember the 9-month cruise that went uber viral last year, the Royal Caribbean on TikTok? Atria Books took over the conversation. A publisher, Mark Sebastian's an influencer. He posted, I will do anything. Someone send me on this cruise. I want to be on this cruise. Atria Books said, we got you. You just have to read a book to everybody while you're on the cruise. They sent him on the cruise, and a book publisher took over a national viral conversation. And I love that because it goes back to, sometimes I hear people say like, oh, but we're not McDonald's, we're not Burger King, but Atria Books is a book publisher. You know, Liquid Death is a water, Duolingo is a language learning app. You're not viral because your category is fun and viral, it's you've made a decision to be part of the cultural conversation. And so that, to me, that Atria Books thing was masterclass.
Well, I'm like in the beauty world space. I love it when brands, makeup brands specifically, align with not just creators, like creatives, artists. Ilia did a really cool one with Claro, and they also had like a Gustav Westman collab, which I thought was really cool because as a makeup brand, one of their brand pillars is interior design, which I had no idea. But things like that, where they're able to kind of build out their brand story in a way that makes sense, is always something that's nice. Because I feel like in the beauty space, it's always like random collab here, random collab, but that one made a lot of sense. So I think I appreciate something like that.
Love it. As we saw, there's a lot of creators in the audience. Something that resonated with me a while back when I was starting my creator journey was this idea of cringe mountain and needing to like climb cringe mountain, and it like sucks to have to record yourself sometimes, and you might hate the way you sound on camera, but you have to climb that to, you know, post more and, you know, get your message out there. So I'm curious if there's anything or advice that you have for just feeling more comfortable posting online as a creator.
Yeah, the approach that I take is to always create my content as though I'm talking to one person. Like I would speak the same way I would speak if we're having coffee. And I try not to think of the audience as this one mass that I'm broadcasting to. It's just like I'm on a FaceTime with someone, and that really reduces the mental friction of trying to figure out like, how am I gonna appease 50,000 people at once?
I like that.
I'm going to just say, post consistently. Consistency is probably the most important thing on social platforms. Just keep posting, keep posting. Post for yourself in the beginning and no one else. Do not worry about the following and the data too much. Just do it what interests you, what you enjoy. Tag brands. Talk about brands that you want to work with. They will work with you. But don't do deals too early. Like really let yourself get there and get where the deals are valuable before you even, it's so hard to turn down money. At first they were like, oh my God, this is so cool. Be patient, grow, see if you really have something there before you dive too deep into brand deals. But they're watching. You tag them, you mention them, I promise you they are watching.
I agree with that point, but I also think just creating for yourself is really important, but also understanding that everyone kind of goes through a cringy moment, and if you don't think you have, you're probably in it right now, and that's fine, but you have to get through it, and I think just acknowledging that is a really big part of it. But I think when you're creating for yourself, it's kind of hard to feel like you're, oh my God, this is like embarrassing, this is cringy. I think when you focus more on enjoying what you're doing, it makes it a lot easier, but the cringe is inevitable, I think.
Yep. I know. I feel like Ash, when we were talking yesterday, and it's like, make content that like you would enjoy, or like talk about things that you find interesting. Like if you're bored by your own content or what you're talking about or the story you're telling, then like people will be too. But if you find it fascinating and cool, then other people will as well. All right. To end, we're gonna go where we started with elevator pitches. Look into your crystal ball. Creator economy trends. What is on the horizon?
I don't know that this is a trend so much as a hope, but we were talking about this idea last night with a car company wanting to partner with influencers, and what kind of, you know, the traditional model would be, okay, let me go find people who talk about cars, who are like car guys or girls or whoever, and let's do partnerships with them. And I think that's been true in like the beauty space, whatever industry you're in, you go find creators in that space. And I think as brands extend and do more interesting things, like they do experiential events, there are so many opportunities to pull in creators with different focuses, whether that's design, food, finance, because there is that narrative thread for those events. So they can come to, the design influencer can come to a beauty event and talk about how, you know, like the design of the experience has come together, allowing that brand to tap into a different niche or an audience that they wouldn't otherwise be able to reach.
Yep. Keith?
I'm very high on creator content, like busting through the walls of social media. We have, I hope this is okay to say, there's a few of our influential voices, but we have a campaign launching as Linky in a couple weeks where we gave these people fake product. They shot a quick clip, they sent it back to us, and we're turning it into TV commercials, Times Square billboards, programmatic display ads, Amazon PDP video pages. Like, we're trying to get brands to understand when you look at a 9x16, your mind is focusing on that format, but that's not where this content lives and dies. So the whole reason we did it was for people to take a look at their video and say, oh my God, like I created a 30-second video, sent it over, and like, holy shit, it turned, oh, am I allowed to say that?
You're good.
Okay. It's not the Canva brand, it feels like. Like, oh my God, like this just turned into a commercial and all these things. And so we wanted to visually show what we keep preaching to brands, which is your imagination is what's curtailing you right now. You need to think much bigger, because I promise you, for every million a brand spends, I know this sounds crazy, for every million a brand spends on influencer, I will bet you they're spending 50 to 100 million on broader paid media. I don't want to be held to what did the million do for a million. I want to be held to how did my million just make that 100 million 10 times more valuable. That is how you do it. Expand the scope of the content.
I agree. I think we're just going to see a lot more traditional entertainment intersect with the creator space. I feel like we're seeing it every single day, so I just see that kind of growing even more. And I think it makes it more fun. People exist outside of their bedrooms, and I think it'll be cool to see even more of that.
Perfect. Thank you all so much, and thank you for sitting in the sun. I know it's really hot out there. Thank you.
Thank you.